The internet has changed everything. There is now way too much content on the internet to be ignored. There are podcasts of Nobel Prize winners. There are courses from Yale and MIT. There are websites. There's a periodic table application for your iPhone. There's a ton of educational content out there. If we don't harness that, we're going to be out of business because most of that stuff is free. At the same time, we've got new global competition, we've got new for-profit competition. The University of Phoenix is already the largest university in the world. You simply can't ignore it. So, I often say that universities today are a bit like the Detroit auto industry in the 1970s or the music business in the 1990s. It's going to change. People are going to buy those little Japanese cars called Honda and Toyota. You may not think so. You may think it's absolutely laughable. But online education is coming. It's real competition. And what we have to do in residential education is figure out what's the extra value that you get for spending all that money to come to a red brick campus. Okay, so everybody wants to know about teaching naked. That doesn't mean you have to be more entertaining. It doesn't mean you have to be naked. But it does mean that if you're a good lecturer, great. If you're not a good lecturer, then stop lecturing, because now the market for lecturing is global. And so unless you have something new to say about covalent bonds that nobody else has said, then use that podcast from Yale or from MIT. What you can do in class is to be more engaging, to be more interactive. So I don't think it means that professors have to be more entertaining. In fact, it means maybe they can be less. I think play to your strengths. Residential education is all about interaction. It's all about dialogue. But you don't have to lecture. Let somebody else lecture and use your class time to do something else. So I'm a big fan of technology, but I think that the best use of technology is outside of the classroom. It's a way to connect with students when they're not in your classroom. When you're in classroom, don't use the technology as a barrier. Talk to your students directly interact, but don't read to them from your lecture notes. I think faculty do have to work harder to get to our digital native students. I'm a big fan of tweeting in your class, of having a hashtag for every class, because teaching has always been about relevance. It's about getting students to care about the material. So students go out about their day. I send one tweet a day. It limits me to 140 characters. That's great. But wherever the students are, whatever you're doing right now, hey, did you just hear the story just broke? Do you think it relates to today's Aristotle reading? That's a great way to get students to continually think about it. It's also a great way to model what it means to be a scholar, that we are making connections between the real world and what we're doing in class 24 hours a day. So an education now needs to be less about depth of knowledge and much more about being able to think critically, to sort through material, to understand what's a good web page, what's a bad source, those sorts of things. So we're seeing a huge change in education from the passing of knowledge and content to the analyzing of knowledge and content, because the knowledge and the content is already out there. I can now carry on in my hand more knowledge than any scholar had access to 10 years ago. That's an amazing change in the history of humanity. SMU has made great strides in increasing diversity on campus in the last 3 years. We've greatly increased the numbers of Dallas ISD students. We've greatly increased the numbers of Hispanic students on campus. We've doubled minority faculty. We're also much more in the community. We're looking for off-campus facilities in West Dallas. We're involved in various schools. We have the Hispanic Youth Symposium. We brought the first Hispanic Youth Symposium to Texas 2 years ago. We now have a program with the National Hispanic Corporate Council over in the business school, the first Hispanic executive leadership program in the country. They didn't go to Harvard, they came to SMU because we're in the right place at the right time, and we understand that this is the way the country is going to go, and we want to be a leader in this area.